This is where the ancient cities and medieval civilizations emerged and disappeared. This is the cradle of great ideas, a place where science and arts prospered, the crossroads of trade and the boldest ideas. What is Central Asia like today? What do the countries in the region have in common? What is the cultural and genetic code of the peoples living in this part of the world? Stay tuned with Central Asian Guide to find out. Discovery of Manas. People's epic poem and contemporary storytellers. Step tradition of improvisation.
수와의 tulpara tokundu eşitkenin üç beren erenderi yolgu salgane atanı yürü valgane iki günlü bir tünlü emi tımbay gün tünlü ölgündü gaydan ayandı özün görügün tal çoku kranları gelip tayandı oşunda tal çoku degen görüp.
A brilliant Kazakh scientist, one of the first people from the steppe region with a European education, Shokan Valikhanov, has done a lot for the research of the Central Asia. In the 1950s, he took part in expeditions to the Trans-Ili Alatau and the Central Tian Shan. The ethnographic trips resulted in sketches about Jungaria and genres of Kazakh folk poetry, as well as notes about Kyrgyz and diary of a trip to Issyk-Kul. The works of the young scientist helped to change the image of the poorly studied life and culture of the peoples of Central Asia in the eyes of world scientific community. Shokan Valikhanov, 1835-1865, Kazakh scientist, orientalist, historian, and ethnographer, member of the Russian Geographical Society. During the expedition to Issyk-Kul, Shokan Valikhanov got acquainted with the majestic folk epic Manas. He was struck by the power of the Kyrgyz heroic trilogy. He made its first ever written record and even translated into Russian a chapter entitled The Death of Kukatai Khan and His Wake. This contributed to the preservation of the medieval epic, because before it existed only in the oral performance of narrators called Manashi. Nowadays, the epic entered the UNESCO World Heritage List and the Guinness Book of Records as the longest in the world. It twice exceeds the famous epic of the Mahabharata and includes up to 500,000 poetic lines. They tell about the actions of Batyr Manas, his son Semete, and grandson Seitek. The epic describes the events connected not only with the Kyrgyz people. This is an epic work that is significant for the entire Turkic world. It contains the history of the kindred peoples of the Eurasian continent.
У нас много общего, если более глубокие пласты.
We have a lot in common. If we dig deeper, first of all, the epic Manas, the heroic epos of the Kyrgyz people, unites us.
Дело в том, что это как бы общее творение, поскольку рядом с Манасом.
It is a kind of common creation, since next to Manas we see our epic heroes, which are portrayed in our Kazakh epic poems, including Erkokshe, Yerkosai, and many others. They appear in the Manas epic as the main figures, the leaders of the large troop tribal units, and so on. As soon as the modern Kazakh intelligentsia began to emerge with Shokan Valikhanov, our first Orientalist who started the study of folklore and drew attention to the contents of the Manas epos.
И он обратил внимание как раз на содержание эпоса Манас.
And during his trip to Issyk-Kul in 1857, he has recorded one of the versions of Manas for the first time in European science, because he was actually a representative of European science, Russian academic science.
Он записал один из вариантов.
He did not stop there. He has also translated this text into Russian, and this is the moment when the classical, modern scientific study of the Manas epic begins.
С этого момента начинается такое классическое, современное научное изучение эпоса Манас.
Following Shokan Valikhanov, the tradition of studying and preserving the Manas epos, the common heritage of the peoples of Central Asia, was picked up by many Kazakh writers and scholars, sometimes risking their own career, freedom, and life.
Традиция изучения эпоса Манас была продолжена.
Mukhtar Awezov, a great Kazakh writer, continued the tradition of studying the Manas epic. He dedicated a special monograph to this topic. Then, an outstanding academician, historian Alkay Margulan dedicated a special monograph, studied and interpreted Manas.
Киргизский эпос «Манас» — это
The Kyrgyz epic Manas is something absolutely unique. Why Mukhtar Awezov defended
в Академии наук заседали.
it during the Soviet era, when the Academy of Sciences talked about the fact that it is not necessary to promote, publish, replicate it, because supposedly it has world outlook of feudalism.
Мировоззрение феодализма.
That's what scientists of Academy of Sciences said, and Awezov defended this epic.
Это совершенно уникальное.
This is a completely unique phenomenon in the world culture that Awezov helped to preserve.
Помог сохранить Ауэзов.
In Kyrgyzstan, the tradition of oral transmission of the epic did not cease in the most severe years of the Bolshevik terror. For the people, Manas had almost a sacred significance. Even in Soviet times, the storytellers gathered numerous listeners who were ready to listen to the legend about the ancient Batars day and night. But at the same time, the storytellers, the Manaschi, and the scientists, so-called Manasologists, could not avoid repressions. The story of Tashim Baijiev, the father of the Kyrgyz writer Mar Baijiev, is clear evidence of this.
Дело в том, что это
The thing is that Manas is a sacred. At the same time, there were real victims because of Manas.
жертвы Святого Манаса. И отец мой
And my father was a Manasologist. He grew up in the environment of Manaschi, from who my father has been recording Manas. In the house, we often had Mukhtar Awezov, who worked with father and was his scientific supervisor.
научным руководителем его. Дело в том, что Манас,
The epic Manas of Kyrgyzstan, this trilogy, is known to the world,
но мало кто знает, что это такое.
but very few people know what it is.
Впервые, можно сказать, открыл
Because Shokan Valikhanov was the first one who published about Manas in the middle of the 19th century.
19 века
He is Kazakh, but a Russian scientist.
казах, но русский ученый, так увлекся Манасом, что уже не мог оторваться. 2 раза
He was so fascinated by Manas that he could not tear himself away. Twice he came here, wrote it down, published, and translated into Russian.
ученый, уже наш.
Well, and certainly a lot for Manas was made by an outstanding scientist of our times, Mukhtar Awezov. This was his first serious scientific work in the 1930s, for which he almost got shot. He got to prison, but thanks God, he was saved. In my old age, I had to deal with it, since because of the Manas, I grew up an orphan and the son of an enemy of the people.
Ну как сказать? Из-за этого
Because my father was also imprisoned. He died in Karlag, like many representatives of our intelligentsia of those years,
в карагандинской тюрьме в Карлаге, как
because he was engaged in Manas and attributed with bourgeois nationalism, allegedly propagandized in his textbooks through Manas.
вот через Манас пропагандировал в своих учебниках.
Respected Manaschi Dolot Sadikov graduated from the National Conservatory. According to him, the Manas division was opened specifically for this, to convince him to get an academic musical education, rather than the historical one, as he was going to.
아탕아유 둥아담소리 개나일 나나스간 거래 갱기인 걸로 그제세다 그스탈라게 레지기 타고레켄 엘주님 바르소리 개네일리 나스간 거래 개네일리 나스간 지깃게 에밍에리 테레글 몽에 케누 Türk elinin başında han bolup azerde bütün azırkı 40 uru
Manas is important for everyone. The epic refers to the Kazakhs, Uzbeks, Tajiks, Tatars, Azerbaijanis, Shors, Altaians, Hakas, Tuvans, Yakuts. Manas has an accurate information about the culture and way of life, their tradition, the history of the appearance and life of these peoples.
madaniyatı, tarixi, ошол элдер кантип келип чыкканы бардыгы сүрөттөлүп келген.
The performance of the epic can last up to 12 hours of uninterrupted reading and take several days and nights, said the Manaschi.
Мен ушул дүйнөгө аралашкан 12 жаштарымда болгон десем.
I have discovered Manas when I was 12 years old. I grew up in the village, guarding sheep, other cattle. And so, when I was walking in the deserted areas, I always had the feeling that someone was waiting for me behind a rock or on the other side of the river, as if Manas Ata would appear now. When I was alone, I was afraid. I thought that Manas Ata walked many centuries ago along the same road. I had strange feelings, as if he was about to appear in front of me.
бир нерсе боло берчү ичимдечи. Анан ошондон бир жума өтүп өтпөй анан Саякбай атабыз келди. Саякбай каралайып ошо келип
Then Sayakbay Ata came in a dream and showed how to read the tale. He told me about the grandfather of the great Batir Manas, about Orozdu and his 10 children. He said, read Manas.
тай келип чапканда кыргыз туш-тушка тарап атпайбы.
After the dream, I became interested. I was attracted to this world, but I did not know anything. And Sayakbay Ata started appearing more often in my dreams, telling me about Manas, reading the lines, and then I was telling him about voice and legend.
Мен Манас айттырат, же болбосо өзү Манас айтып аткан болот, же үнү угулуп аткан болот.
And then, as I said earlier, Manas Ata and 40 of his companions came to me in a dream.
Ушул жанагы айттым го Манас атабы.
Only after that dream I began to read and telling the stories and became a Manaschi.
Бергенден анан ошондон кийин ушу Манасчы болуп кеттим да ошо. Менин чоң аталарымдан бери Манас айткан кишилер болгон.
My ancestors were Manaschi. My grandfather's mother was Aikin, a storyteller. My grandfather was the narrator of the exploits of Manas, Semite, and Saitek. He was Aikin improviser. I know that he perfectly described the epic about Kyrgyz-Kazakh relations and ties when he was telling about the folk heroes of Jibek or Ormanbek. People stood for hours listening to the stories of Kazakh Batirs. Unfortunately, the legends were not recorded. My father is also a storyteller, Manaschi. My mother was a Kazakh from Zhezkazgan. When I always present to her the guests, I say my mother is a Kazakh, but she has a special gift of a real Kyrgyz. She's a healer. She heals children.
В имени Манаса 3 религии.
The name of Manas unites 3 religions, as well as the fact that God is one. I'll read a little how I deciphered. And suddenly I came to this feast, a tramp with a beggarly stick. Let the first sound be Ma, the beginning of the word Magomed, the messenger of God and the prophet. He calls humanity to be pure with soul and body. This is my edition. Let the second letter be N, the initial sound from the word Noah. He is kind in the Holy Bible. When then he came to us, he saved all the living from death. The end will be from the word sin. A powerful line is invincible. Your God, you yourself, said Buddha. Scales on your 2 shoulders. To be clean in your affairs, always weigh your actions. That's what Manas is, which calls to unite, because God is one. The people's writer and academician of the National Film Academy, Marbayev, was one of the founders of Kyrgyz cinema. The films, shot by his scenarios in Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, and Russia, received the highest awards of international film festivals, and his plays are included in the repertoire of many theaters in Europe and Asia, Canada, and Latin America. The dramaturg keeps talking about the mutual influence of the cultures of the brotherly peoples. The famous Kyrgyz filmmakers enjoyed working with Kazakh writers and actors.
Первые фильмы, они, художественные фильмы, начали снимать на базе.
The first films, feature films, were based on Kazakh literature. Later, Akev and Shamshiyev shot based on the stories of Mukhtar Awezov, and then we go further. And our cinema reached new level and has showed itself. That's why we always believed that these are 2 peoples, brotherly peoples. And what a difference. If Kazakh is on the screen, the most important thing is that our cinema was Kyrgyz Kazakh. And that's how it went. And of course, we had a very close relationship with Kazakh actors. You know, there are wonderful actors there. What is an actor? The actor should have a character, beauty, and voice. It was already impossible to manage without Kazakh actors. It was very symbolic that Akev always filmed Kazakh actors in main roles in the films in which I was the author. I liked Joly very much. This is a great Kazakh actor.
Очень символично, что Акеев по фильмах даже, где я был автором.
Descendants of the White Leopard is a film that entered the list of 100 of the best films of the world, and then we filmed Golden Autumn, a cave shot by my script.
Фильм, который попал в 100 лучших фильмов мира. Потом мы сняли
There is a moment with Kazakh song in a background when Joly walks along the shore of Issyk with our hero, a little boy. It sounded like something familiar, and many did not even know in the West, in Cannes, where the festivals were held, who were Kazakh. Kyrgyz. We all were Kyrgyz and Kazakhs. That's the thing.
В Каннах, где проходили фестивали, кто из нас кто? Где казах, где кыргыз. Для них мы были все кыргызы или казахи. Вот такое дело.
Chakhan Valikhanov wrote that the people's poetic creativity of the Kazakh people gives a complete picture of their historical and spiritual life. The art of the word has always been respected among the peoples of Central Asia. In the oratorical and performing skill of the steppe, troubadours raised them to the highest levels in society. Often the authors of epic poems, Jirao, became advisors to the rulers of the great steppe.
Профессор Едыге Турсунов, он
Professor Yadage Tursunov, in one of his last articles, says that the origin of Jirao is related to the 1st century AD. Hasan Kaygı. Scientists believe that he was the oldest Jirao because there are a lot of myths and legends around his name, and the more the image is mythologized, the more ancient it is. His name is associated with legends about Peri, that he was half human, son of Peri. There is the legend that he himself fell in love with Peri. There is a very interesting legend that Peri also fell in love with him, and this plot is very similar to the Japanese film Snow Woman. That's the reason why Hasan is sad. Where did this inhuman sadness in him come from? And people have mythologized it. But what did he look for, like many of our Jirao? Happiness for his people, the promised land, that is Jibek, also could not find. The folk song heritage and traditions of its performance among the peoples of Central Asia, especially from the heirs of the nomadic civilization, are very close in spirit and style. This is noted by scientific experts throughout the Turkic world.
Кыргыз менен казактын айтуучулук өнөрүндө, акындык өнөрүндө анча деле айырма жок.
The oral folk art of the Kyrgyz and Kazakhs is very similar. In oral culture, everything goes on synchronously.
Озеки маданиятта баары синхрондуу жүрөт да. Музыка менен сөз ошондой эле.
Always the word is accompanied by some kind of folk instrument. The song of the Kazakhs sounded like the great steppe widely. It is more musical and softer.
Баягы ыргагы, созулушу ошол менен айырмаланат. Ал эми кыргыздык болсо мындай тоо арасында мындай бир
In the Kyrgyz songs, nature of the high mountains is felt. It has rigidity, but the epic songs of the two peoples are very similar.
Андан сырткары айырма эпика бирдей эле, эпикалык ырлар, мисалы жырлар да казакта.
Kazakh Jirao glorify the Batars. The Kyrgyz are the same. Such songs are about the past, about the exploits of the Batars, about important events from the life of the people.
Өмүрүндө өткөн урунттуу бир кайгылуу окуяларды, же болбосо даңазалуу окуяларды.
Among the Kazakhs, there are also narrators of the Manas epic, and we also have narrators of Jibek, Koblandi Batyr, and Alpamis. This means that the nomadic culture of Kyrgyz and Kazakhs is syncretistic.
Кыргыз, казак, башка элдердики синкреттүү түрдө байланышкан. Биздин тарыхыбыз ошол эпостарда, ошол айтыштарда.
Our whole history is in folk epics, fairy tales, and bailinas.
Биздин кандай болду мисалы казактарда, кыргыздарда баарында деген кечине боз үйгө кирип.
After all, as it was when Kazakhs came to Kyrgyz as guests, or vice versa, what did they do?
Кыргыздар конокко калса, алар эмне кылган? Комуз менен, домбура менен.
They put the guest in a place of honor and sang, playing on kumuz or dombra, about their people, about their ancestors, the history of the people. Such trend of instrumental creativity as cue for performance on various folk instruments, dombra, sibizgi, kobiz, and jadigan was thriving along with the ancient epic tales, jurs, in the culture of the Turkic world, and in particular in the Kazakh culture. And the oral song has also developed by the professional performance, steppe bards such as Birjan Sal and Akan Sere.
Mangmanger kekelenge geletey şalın mayda Jaratkan seni salap kalkatayda
Эпическое сказительство именно у тюркского мира представлено в большом...
In the Turkic world, an epic narrative is represented in great diversity. These are heroic epics about the legendary ancestors. And later, the lyric-enriched epics that emerged from the heroic epic were formed. One and the same epic is present in different peoples. Well, let's say the most common epic, Alpamiz. In the Uzbek version, it is Alpamish. This is an epic which is present at least among 10 peoples, Turkic peoples. Improvisation is the most important part of the whole traditional culture of all Turkic peoples. There are no two identical options ever. All performers knew that, because even if he performs now this cue at this very second and 1 hour later, he will perform the same cue in different ways. Any musician understands that these two could be completely different works. Performance, the quality is affected by many factors. It can be affected by the weather. Because of the rainy weather, instrument may sound different. The emotional state of the artist in general can affect too. Akin was first of all a representative of the clan, and the clan form of public residence was historically one of the first forms. Akin participated in the most important events of the life of the family and man, like weddings. It was Akin who opened the face of the bride. It was Akin who organized gatherings, funeral dinners. It was the Akin who was engaged in important affairs of a clan. He lived only with his clan, and, of course, the genre where he showed his talent, it was the genre of itis. Itis had taboo. Two relatives, two representatives of the same clan could not participate in the same itis. That is also one of the ancient laws, a ban of fratricide. That is, brother cannot kill a brother with even a word, as well as in sports fights. If we rely on the work of Yadiget Tursunov, one of the most ancient genres of itis is still relevant in the 21st century. This is the only genre that today gathers full rooms, and tickets are sold out, and people sit for several hours, sometimes for 8 to 10 hours, and do not go anywhere. That is an indicator of the relevance of this genre. Akins and Jirau are so loved by the people that novels and plays are written about them, as well as films, operas, and plays. And often these are not professional actors and singers, but the people's theater of the Philharmonic artists, as in this production, which presents the author's interpretation of the legendary itis between Nartay and the daughter of Kozjan B, famous Jambul and Ikamis, famous Berjan Sal and Sara. Today's concert is called Itis Babalar Murasi. We want to present to the general public a theatrical presentation of the great Itiskers, whose names are inscribed with gold letters in our history. Not knowing our past, we do not have the future.
Жамбыл атамыз одан да бұрын, Жамбыл атамыздан да бұрын өткен.
We had great Akins, Jirau, Jirshi, like Jambul Jabaev. Any art form, itis, terme, or jir, they are all an invaluable legacy of the Kazakh people.
Көне мұрасы асыл қазынасы деп айтсақ та болады.
Бүгінгі сомдайтын Сараның әнін, Сара атамыздың әнін.
I played the role of Sarah. In the 5th grade, I learned the song My Name is Sarah.
Атым Сара деген әнді үйренген едім. Бүгінгі мысалы.
And today, I'm honored to perform the role of an unrivaled master of itis art.
Сара болып шығу маған бұйырыпты.
In general, the itis between Birjan and Sarah is one of the most popular itises in our history. I like the introductory part because since childhood I knew very well the song of Sarah of Altinbek Korazbayev. I sang it from childhood. Allow me to perform it to you. Popular competition among poets and improvisers, itis, have long gone beyond the borders of patrimonial estates and have become popular and even more international. Representatives of different countries fight in verbal and musical duels on the stage, and as a rule, they and the audience perfectly understand each other because all are united by Turkic speech. In the autumn of 2017, the Kazakh itisker Mukhtar Niyazov and the Kyrgyz performer Asylbek Muradov won the Grand Prix at the International Contest of Akans in Kyrgyzstan.
Өзіңді құрметтейді ия жүрек, арасында айтысып зайтыппен, рухани жаңғырғанның зияны жоқ.
2012 жылы менің өмірімде үлкен оқиға алтын домбыраны алған жылым осы Астанада болды.
In 2012, a very important event happened in my life. I won the contest Altın Dombra, Golden Dombra. This also happened here.
Осы жерде болып жатқан конференцияларға қатыса жүріп,
Later, participating in international IT's various events, conferences, I made the final decision to move to Astana. About 10 years ago, I finished a bachelor's degree in Kizilorda. Therefore, last year, I decided to enter the master's program of the Eurasian National University. Now it is the second year. The university has become a center not only for a whole galaxy of Akans and itiskers, but also for artists and other creative people. Thanks to Yerlan Sadikov, our rector, a special attitude towards creative people has been developed here. In parallel with his studies, Mukhtar Niyazov works on the Asıl Arna television channel, edits the programs, and acts as a TV presenter. He moved to Astana with the whole family and did not forget about the parents. By the way, Mukhtar already has 5 children. Eldest son recently won the title of world champion in karate in Bulgaria. But caring about family and work do not take him away from the main passion of life, verbal creativity. Itisker is sure that this centuries-old tradition will live on, forcing people's hearts to beat more often, uniting the peoples of Central Asia in a common love for ancient art. This year I was invited to Kyrgyzstan again. ITIS in honor of the 80th anniversary of Tuganbay Ata was held there. I was lucky again, and the judges decided to award me the Grand Prix. In fact, there is not much difference between Kyrgyz and Kazakhs in appearance, in language, and in art. There used to be a language barrier, but now we have a good understanding of each other. Therefore, I would like our art of improvisation to continue to develop, thereby expanding our geography. Our fighters performed in Turkey, in Europe. Our compatriots who live there still have a national code. They are ready to modernize public consciousness. ITIS includes a lot of values. Reviving it, we can achieve a lot. Therefore, we are entrusted with a special mission, a great responsibility.
Сақтау, тарихын, дәстүрін сақтау деген сияқты астарында бұның бұғып жатқан қаншама құндылықтарымыз бар. Бір ғана айтысты тірілту арқылы біз қаншама игіліктерге қол жеткіземіз.
I am a Kazakh. I have died and come back to life 1,000 times in order to continue the story through my life. If I cried, the sun darkened in the sky, and if I laughed, the darkness receded from my eyes. I'm a Kazakh. In my own way, I am also great. I am like a new 7th continent between old Europe and ancient Asia. But I'm used to being with all other peoples. I'm a Kazakh. I am an immortal heart in which, with all the immensity, boundless space, the steppe fits inhabits and becomes me as a child in the mother's womb.